In a distant, isolated village, the inhabitants lived on the edge of a forbidden forest. The forest was known among everyone for its ancient curse, as the elders spoke of tortured souls that resided within, and adventurers who entered but never returned. Over time, tales and songs were passed down to frighten children and keep the adults from venturing near. But Iyad, a brave young man with a thirst for adventure, did not believe in such superstitions. He wanted to prove to everyone that the curse was nothing more than a myth. Defying all warnings, he vowed to return safely from the depths of the forbidden forest. On a dark night under a pale moon hidden behind thick clouds, Iyad set off alone into the forest, carrying only a torch, his curiosity, and his courage. As Iyad stepped into the forest, a strange feeling hung in the air, a chill that seemed to touch his soul. The trees were tall and dense, their leaves rustling with a whispering sound. He moved cautiously, but with each step deeper into the woods, he felt as if shadows were shifting around him. Suddenly, he heard light footsteps trailing him, but when he turned, he saw nothing. Whenever he looked behind him, the darkness seemed to swallow everything. He pressed on until he reached an ancient, abandoned well, surrounded by stones marked with peculiar symbols. Carefully approaching it, he peered inside. As he did, a sudden gust of wind slammed the well's cover shut. A pale, ghostly figure of a woman appeared, her eyes empty and soulless. She let out a low, mournful moan and whispered, "You are not welcome here. You will pay the price." Iyad's blood ran cold, but his fear only fueled his determination. He shouted at the spirits, "I am here to uncover the curse, and I am not afraid of you." At that moment, the ground trembled, and dark thorns erupted from the earth around him, as if the forest itself had decided to test him. Strange voices surrounded him, calling him to venture further. Compelled, he followed their lead deeper into the forest, eventually stumbling upon an old, cracked wooden hut. The door was slightly ajar, so he stepped inside, his torch flickering with every anxious breath. Inside, dust covered every surface, and ancient texts and scattered papers filled the room. On a table lay a small skull. The air was thick with murmurs and whispers. As he searched the hut, Iyad found a peculiar leather-bound book containing tales of the curse of the shadows, describing tormented souls that trapped anyone who dared to uncover the secrets of the forest. Suddenly, his light went out, and he felt a cold breath on the back of his neck. He turned swiftly and found himself face to face with a dark, shadowy figure. A shape made entirely of darkness, as if fear had taken form. The figure spoke in a chilling voice. "You should not have come, but now that you are here, you must either defeat us or become one of us." Iyad had no idea what the entity meant, but he knew he had to escape. He ran through the forest, pursued by shadows that weaved through the trees, shrieking with deafening noises. Suddenly he stopped, finding himself standing within a circle on the ground, surrounded by ancient stones. He felt protected inside the circle. The old woman from the well appeared, her eyes glowing with a sickly green light. She spoke of the curse. Long ago, this curse was born when one of our own betrayed the shadows and refused to offer his soul. Ever since, the curse haunts anyone who dares to break it. She told him that the only way to survive was to confront his deepest fears inside the Temple of Shadows, where the souls of those who came before him were trapped. Iyad made his way to the temple, which was covered with cursed symbols and reeked of death. Inside, he found mirrors that reflected his worst fears. He saw himself transforming into one of the shadows, hunting those he loved. Voices whispered to him, "Surrender. This is your fate." In a critical moment, Iyad remembered that fear itself was the shadow's greatest weapon. He stood before his reflection and shouted with all his strength, "You will not control me. I am no longer afraid." The mirror shattered and the shadows screamed. The cursed souls in the temple were freed, and the shadows began to dissolve one by one. When dawn broke, Iyad found himself at the edge of the forest. Exhausted and battered, he knew that the curse had been broken. He returned to the village where the townsfolk looked at him in awe, sensing that something had changed. From that day on, the Forbidden Forest was no longer as feared as before, and Iyad's story became a legend of bravery, fearlessness, and breaking the curse of the shadows.